Here is some sound from President Trump's visit to St. Cloud, Minnesota this weekend.
We're pleased to be joined tonight by many fantastic Minnesota patriots, including House Majority Whip. And I can tell you, he's a tough guy and a strong guy. And we've become, I really believe, really good friends. And he's working the state. He's going to give me the biggest surprise on November 5th. Tom Emmer, great guy.
A very energetic rally, and the man you just heard President Trump mention joins me now. Congressman Tom Emmer represents Minnesota's 6th Congressional District, and he's the House Majority Whip. Sir, good to have you on the phone today. Thank you very much.
Great to be with you, Vince.
Have you seen a rally like this in Minnesota before?
There was only one that I could compare it to. The answer is no, but I will compare it to 2016. When we were talking to the president about going to Duluth, Minnesota, which is just 60 miles southeast of the Iron Range, right? The famous Iron Range in Minnesota, which had been controlled by Democrats, Vince, for 78 of the previous 80 years.
Wow.
And we talked about it's going to be a religious experience. Well, I'll tell you what. They packed that place. There were 25,000 people that were around that arena. They did it in a hockey arena in Minnesota, in Duluth. But this one, Vince, oh, my gosh. I mean, this is only within 50 minutes or an hour of downtown Minneapolis. And they did it in an inside venue, which the paper reported he got a capacity crowd of 8,000. Vince, it's a hockey arena. And it holds 8,000 when you don't have ice when you have ice in the arena. But when you don't, they gave out 12,000 tickets. The fire marshal had to cut off the people that were being allowed in because it was getting to be a fire danger. It was overflow on the inside. And then if you look to the outside, you could not see the end of the crowd that was assembled outside of the arena watching everything on the screen. And I mean, the president will tell you, I have people who have been to all these rallies. It was incredible. And the best statement I'll give you, Vince, is one of the people that's been at many rallies said to me, you know, I'm not going to tell you it was the best ever, but I can't think of one that was better.
Yeah, the bar is so high for that, and President Trump constantly keeps setting it. It is the most unusual phenomenon that any of us have seen in politics in our lives. And he did it once again in Minnesota this weekend. Very cool to see. My impression from all the way over here watching that is that Minnesota in many ways is still reeling from the events of 2020, the George Floyd riots that kicked off there. And I know that was the subject in part of President Trump's remarks this weekend because he talked about the role that Kamala Harris played in stoking the chaos. Can you talk about that a little bit and to what extent that's going to be a fixture during this campaign now?
Yeah, there's the Minnesota Freedom Fund, Vince, was created to raise money from donors to bail out criminals. These are people that were burning down Minnesota. These are Minneapolis. These are people that were assaulting peace officers. And Kamala Harris, by the way, local Twin Cities media has tried to rewrite history, much like some of our national corrupt mainstream media folks have been trying to rewrite Kamala's history, but they can't on this one. She advocated for people to put money into the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and they might have changed it yesterday or today, but as of this weekend, her name is still on the Minnesota Freedom Fund. And look, she was instrumental in releasing multiple criminals, including two, Vince, who went and committed murder. This is on Kamala Harris. Her hands, the blood is on her hands from those families that lost loved ones because she had criminals released from prison. This gal is anti-cop. She's anti-Israel. She's anti-fracking, which means she's anti-energy. She's the reason that we have 20% inflation the last 3.5 years under her and Biden, Harris and Biden's administration, because she was the tie-breaking vote in the Senate for the Green New scam that kicked off this inflation. So it was definitely the topic of discussion. But I just got to add, you talked about this president being a phenomenon. You realize that was his third event of the day, Vince. He had done one in the morning. He had spoken to the Bitcoin conference, incredibly well received in Nashville, and then he came to Minnesota and he gave a 90-minute talk where people were just mesmerized and in their seats going crazy. In fact, they were actually yelling as it was time for him to go, "Please don't go."
Yeah, it's cool to see. And encouraging, too, because this last week, as the media, you point out, the corrupt press has really circled the wagons around Kamala Harris, attempted to reinvent her very personality, and then insisted that her campaign is the best of all time. The left has, at least for the moment, created an artifice of energy around the Kamala Harris campaign. As you're out there on the road and you're out there, including in Minnesota, and you go to rallies like this, what do you think of the campaign that the left is mounting now with Kamala Harris as their candidate versus the campaign that Donald Trump is waging?
Well, I mean, Donald Trump is consistent, and he is going to continue to draw these enormous crowds because people remember what life was like in a Trump economy. People remember what life was like when it was peace through strength around the world. I mean, people respected this country, so that's not going to change. On the other side, I would just say they did something very undemocratic. They pushed a guy off the ballot. You literally, I believe, figuratively had Obama knifing him and Nancy Pelosi pushing him over the edge. And now you've got Kamala. So there's going to be a little burst of, excitement, much like there was, remember, when she ran for president. There was that initial burst of energy, and then the lady started talking. And when that happened, she tanked. She actually pulled out before Iowa with 1% to 3% of the vote. And Vince, people should expect, because of this corrupt media, that there are going to be great stories next week when she picks a vice presidential running mate, so her numbers will probably get better. Then they're going to have their convention, and they'll have great stories from that. People should expect that because the mainstream media and these political elites will try to protect that campaign, that the numbers that you'll see will tighten. She might even end up being ahead in a couple of them. But after we get through Labor Day, when people start to engage again, and it's about the economy, it's about the border and crime, it's about all of this violence around the world caused by Harris and Biden. Harris doesn't even know where these places are, by the way. Remember, she hasn't been to the border and she hasn't been to Europe.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be good. Minnesota, there's a poll out right now that shows Trump is down by 6, but I know he's got one that shows him up by 1. We got a long way to go. It's 99 days. People will start voting in Minnesota on September 20th.
Yes.
I really think we can flip Minnesota for the first time in 50 years. Donald Trump can flip Minnesota.
Well, it's important that people think the race is close because it means that they'll fight all the harder to win it. So I don't mind the polls showing Trump trailing in any of these places because that means more and more people who want to fight for decency are going to have the incentive to do that. And the other thing here, Congressman, you mentioned a moment ago, and I know I've seen some headlines with your name attached to them, talking about when Kamala Harris begins speaking in a candid way, that this is going to jeopardize their campaign, meaning if she's off script, and I completely agree with that. I've been saying that, right now, insofar as the Trump campaign should have a strategy, it should be to encourage Kamala Harris to speak more in public. We need to basically force her to take a press conference. I don't care how nice the questions are to her. Just get her off script in front of a microphone, and that's when she starts plummeting, Congressman.
Oh, Vince, just ask her a question like, so, Kamala, how would you stimulate economic growth?
Yeah.
I mean, she has no idea how to do that. Kamala, what would your foreign policy look like? I mean, are we going to put the Hamas in charge of the region? She just doesn't have any clue, and that's why when she starts talking and she gets off of her main subjects, which are women's health and race, she can't hold a candle to Donald Trump because he actually knows how to get the economy going. He actually understands how to keep this country safe, both here at home and around the world. He understands how to take care of the crime issue. He gets it. And guess what, Vince? The average American knows he gets it. That's why they're going to vote for him.
Yeah. The Kamala Harris campaign, one of the most brazen things about them, first of all, they have such a freakish campaign, Congressman, if I'm being completely honest, because like she started this past week with she did a drag queen show last week. The RuPaul's Drag Race, that was one of her first campaign events as their candidate. This past week there have been a number of these segregated donation drives that they're doing where they only have people of certain skin colors and genders together. Last week it was black women, then there was white women, and today I guess it's white men for Kamala. And I'm just looking at all this, Congressman, and going, holy crap, they're literally having segregated campaign events and they're acting like this is normal. And the rest of us are saying, no, we know what normal is, and it's not what you're doing.
No, and I think that what you and I are going to see, Vince, as we get into the voting part of fall up till November 5th, a lot of people are disgusted by this type of behavior. They understand right from wrong. They understand that these people have been lying to them for years. These people, meaning Kamala Harris and her ilk, they've been taking the high road in Washington, D.C., telling all the little people on Main Street across this country, you don't understand. You're not smart enough to understand. We'll tell you. Well, guess what? Those people are going to tell them in November that we've had enough. And my grandfather's Democrat Party ain't coming back after this one. It has become the socialist, Marxist, radical left party of America. And by the way, they're leaving behind their traditional base, black voters, Hispanic voters, Asian voters, liberal Jews, who are now available for Donald Trump's message. And I think you're going to see a lot of them cross over and vote for Donald Trump.
Finally, on that question, to what extent are you seeing that demographic shift right now? We saw, even labor union guys have been moving more and more in President Trump's direction. You're watching a lot of demographic shift. Right now, Hispanic voters are a coin toss in the country about whether or not they'll vote for a Democrat or a Republican. A lot of change has taken place. How much of that is going to be occurring this year?
Well, I mean, first off, when you talk about the private unions, you're never going to get union membership to support, but he's going to get the membership, which is much bigger. I mean, you talk about Minnesota, he has completely transformed the union-dominated Iron Range. That is Trump country, like you've never seen before. But I think use the black vote. I think this applies to Hispanic, Asian, other. Trump got 7%, I believe, of the black vote in 2020. He's polling close to 20% right now. That's just an example of that shift that I think we're going to see more and more of, by the way. Donald Trump is the catalyst for all of this. But if Republicans, once we take back the White House with Donald Trump, once we flip the Senate in November and we hold the House, if Republicans will do what we were sent there to do, which is get the budget, the spending under control, have a plan to start paying down and ultimately pay off the debts so our children have the future that we all would like them to have. If we do that stuff, Vince, Donald Trump will be instrumental in setting us on a course of Republicans could be governing this country for the next 50 years, much like Democrats did in the last century.
All right, we'll see. Congressman Tom Emmer, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate that. Look forward to chatting with you again soon, sir.